Welcome to PiT Profiles, a peek behind the scenes at the people who make peak improv theater more than just a stage. In each episode, we spotlight students, performers, teachers, and staff as they share their improv journey, personal growth, and what keeps them coming back. Whether you're here for the laughs or the life lessons, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Marta Lane. Let's dive in. Audra Stephenson first got involved with improv to work on stress related to social safety, improve general communication at work, and to help with podcasting. Her favorite thing about the PiT is the people. She made friends in that first class almost a year ago that she is still friends with. At every turn, she meets someone new with a similar sense of humor or an overlapping interest. When not doing improv, she creates fiber art, reads, watches pro wrestling, or hosts podcasts. Audra, thanks for joining me.
It's so good to be here.
Just real quick, since I'm a writer, I would love to know what you read.
I read, it's mostly fantasy books, and most of the time it ends up being the same fantasy books over. It's fantasy, it's self-help, it's the big uns. So I'm reading Lord of the Rings for my annual reread currently.
Oh my gosh, the next time you see Dan, my husband, you guys are going to totally, if you bring that up, he's read it like the same. He does it, he reads it every year. He's probably read it 50 times. He reads the same fantasy books over and over. Dragon Riders of Pern. I can't think of any other ones that he reads over and over, but it must be a fantasy reader thing because when I read a book, I'm done with it one time.
I can't reread many other books. Like I'll read books in any other world and I'm like, "Yep, that was fun." Or, "God, that was emotionally exhausting." But I think there is something about fantasy worlds that feels so perilous but also so safe. Like in the same way where it's like, "Ah, yes, this is the one I want to keep coming back to over and over again." And so
All
I
right.
love it.
Well, that explains it. Okay, let's get down to why we're here. What made you sign up for your first class at the PiT?
Um, I wanted to sign up for my first class at the theater. Just there was an element that was curiosity. There was an element of it being in such proximity because Denver is the closest way, like the closest other like improv theater, it feels like. So the distance to be able to go up there is just is not convenient. um, and mostly I just kind of wanted to get out of my head a little bit because I think that's the type of thing that most of the things that cause me stress come back to me just being in my head and like going over and over and over and over. Uh, and so I was like, we're trying improv. We're getting in there. I was going to say jumping in with 2 feet, but I don't think I've jumped in with 2 feet to anything in my whole life. We were tentatively dipping our toe in the water. Um, and I left the first class, and the thought that I had was, God, that was uncomfortable in the exact way that I need to be made uncomfortable. Like it's one of those things where like you use a muscle you didn't know that you had and you're like, "Ooh, that needs to be strengthened." Definitely. And I want it to be strengthened. And so it was just so cool.
That's really brave.
Oh, if they had gentle improv when I started, I would have started in gentle improv. There is not a question.
Why is that?
Just I think it is the like social safety types of things. And that means something different for everybody. For me, I just have like I grew up kind of with the social idea of like everyone's watching you at all times for a reason to punish you socially.
That's
I
terrifying.
right? Like I was in like really competitive academic things. I was cheerleading captain. I was like in lots of clubs, but didn't really ever feel like I fit with anything that I was doing. Um, but improv, if that's anything that anybody is familiar with, the feeling of the idea that you are in a scene with someone and the things and the ideas that you have are not annoying to them, they are gifts to them. So that was revolutionary. And so I'm working on these things of like, in the life that I live now, that is fundamentally untrue, that people are watching me to judge me and punish me. And I don't know, maybe some people are, but I that's that's fine. Most people aren't, especially at the theater. And so being able to concentrate kindness and social acceptance is a wild concept, because normally that's something that's tough, that feels tough to find. But to be able to just concentrated doses of everybody likes you and your ideas will be accepted. And it was great. Great. That and the other things. Um, I also signed up for work things. I think sometimes getting in my head about like, what's the perfect way to do this? Sometimes perfect is the enemy of good. And so being able to be like, no, this is an idea that I have and I'm going to say it. Um, in a workplace, that is a superpower, because so many people, I think, will have ideas and they won't say them. Or they'll be like, oh, I must be missing something. So this is definitely not a good idea. And I think, especially for women in male dominated fields, I work in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I'm a STEM person doing my best. And I think especially women won't say their ideas. And so one of the things you do in the first improv class is going back and forth, at least in the one that I took, going back and forth in a category, naming things that belong in that category, and they don't have to be right. You just have to say something. And so that skill, anyone should do improv. But it was especially useful for me as someone who was a woman in a male dominated field. And I'm trying to think what specific how specifically did I word my last thing? Um,
Well,
oh,
you,
podcasting.
okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, the studio that I'm currently in, the podcasting studio. Um, I do podcasting, like comedy, fandom, game show podcasting currently, and being able to be quick with what you're saying um, is such a gift, because you're trying to cultivate a really fun atmosphere for the people who are on the podcast and for all the people who are listening to the podcast. And to be able to do that quickly and a bit more effortlessly, and to make those connections that I see improvisers making, I was like, oh, this could be really useful. And so far it has been. And I haven't even been doing it that long.
I'm really just amazed at how improv has helped you speak up at work. I mean,
Mhm.
probably most women know what it feels like to be in a room full of men at work and you have an idea and you're just not really confident in sharing it. So for improv to be able to give you that kind of confidence is
Yes.
empowering.
Yeah. Because I think there's so many incredibly intelligent, competent, phenomenal women in every corner of every industry. And I almost feel like you need to speak a little bit louder sometimes, or you might need to throw out a couple extra things. And so, kind of inoculating yourself to that fear is really is so helpful, because I feel like there are certain things that when you're socialized male, you're like, oh yeah, throw this out, and it doesn't necessarily hit me as hard. But when you're socialized female and you're the only woman in the room, like someone being like, hey, can you take notes? And be like, actually, I had a few things to present today. Uh, just being able to say that directly and to not make a big deal out of it is such a skill to be able to be seen as a peer. If you're someone like me who is going to be a little more shy, is going to be a little bit more of a wallflower, is typically not gonna be a more bold personality in the workplace. Just to give yourself a little bit, it's weird, to give yourself a little bit of stage presence in the office can help you. Everyone should be respected immediately, but it helps push your way into areas where people aren't instinctively respecting you like they should.
Yes, yes. So I want to back up just a little bit. Um, you mentioned earlier when you were talking about your going to your what made you go to improv, and you used the word we a couple of times, and you have a similar backdrop to someone I interviewed.
Yes. Yeah. You may have seen my husband. I'm not sure the order of the interviews as you're watching them. But yeah, I started doing improv with my husband.
And that's Matt Watson.
Yes, Matt
Yeah.
Watson.
And you both do the Gate Leapers podcast together.
Yes. So we have Gate Leapers is started out as the name of our game show, but as we brought more people into our group that wanted to be making this, it spawned a couple other shows. So we are the Gate Leapers, and we have a few different shows under that banner.
Zac Efron, Troy Bolton, High School Musical Leggings, HSM, Funny, Movie, Meme, Song, Gabriella. That is the title of the Etsy listing, and here is the image of the product.
Can we know the fabric?
Yeah, that's
We only get the title?
Cannot reveal anything other than the title and the image.
I love the one right in the middle with his arms like up. That's just across the crotch.
Biblical.
First item's always tough. We're always trying to gauge the temperature.
Yeah. Like, what is this particular fandom?
How obsessed
What's their
are
range?
they?
Mhm.
Yeah. And also, are they teenagers? And do they have their parents' credit card?
Yes.
I don't think teenagers know about High School Musical nowadays.
Oh, okay. I thought it might
Yeah.
be a
Really
thing
sad.
that continued on.
They're buying these as a joke. Rude.
Getting them for their grandparents.
That's probably accurate.
It's that boy you like, Grandma.
If you could tell me about your journey at the PiT, starting with your first class and what other classes you've taken.
Yeah. I started Improv 101 and I'm very nervous. I may have taken Gentle Improv if it was available. I am kind of glad that I started with Improv 101 because something that I keep finding out is that I am a bit more capable than I'm giving myself credit for. I was in Improv 101 and we were playing that game of just naming things back and forth. And I immediately eliminated myself. I was like, I can't think of anything. I'll eliminate myself. And Casey Frey, the teacher of that class, was like, nope, give me a couple more. And then was like, okay, now I'll let you go. You've got more if you get out of your own way. And
Yes, he's always saying, don't give up on yourself.
yeah. And I like walked to the back of the line and I was like, I've been in this class for less than an hour. I don't think I'm supposed to have my soul seen yet. Like that was a little direct. No, it was perfect. It was in such a perfectly tailored way for the things that I needed to grow. And then I took intermediate improv with some of those same people from the Improv 101 and then moved on to advanced improv. And I also have taken a couple rounds of stand-up classes there, which has been especially good for work.
What?
Yeah.
The idea of stand up terrifies me because you're up there all alone and you have to remember your jokes.
I think that it's also Casey who teaches the stand-up class. But the way that Casey teaches and like has you get a bit of stage presence is having, where you start and where you end. And he has you practice the ability to get from point A to point C in a way that I think is terrifying at first, but is so confidence building once you know that you're like, I know where the joke goes. Because then it's less of like, I have to remember these lines, and more, I kind of know the flow of this type of thing, which is what most public speaking ends up being. If I'm giving presentations at work, someone might interrupt and ask a question. The slides might be out of order, or I need to do it suddenly faster than before. So things are going to change normally when I'm public speaking. And so to have that type of baseline of, you know where you're starting, you know where you're ending, and you have the capability of finding your way there, was, yes, terrifying at first. But
Especially for a self-proclaimed wallflower.
I feel like I have two modes. I'm at 0% or 100%. And so I think stand up has been really fun for that as well. Where I'm like, as soon as I can get over that barrier to entry, which is myself, I'm the barrier to entry.
Ooh,
And so
yes, that's
then
great.
then I can really go for it. And I've loved it.
All right, Audra, you have inspired me to give it a shot, but I think I'm going to do intermediate and advanced first.
It helps you. I'm glad that I did it in that order because I got really comfortable in the space. But the stand-up classes, they're so fun. He gives you writing exercises. He has you on stage the first class with a microphone in your hand just because it's scary. And so it's kind of the acknowledgement that this is kind of scary. And so you're going to do this every single class before you get up there. You're going to have as many chances to be up here and be supported by the people in this class as possible. So it's very cool.
All right, I'm going to take your word for it.
Strong recommendation.
Okay, so thinking back to day one, class one, walking in those front doors of the PiT Improv Theater, what was your biggest fear?
Ooh. That I would be perceived in any way. It's that social safety type of thing where people will like, oh, I'll make a choice, and because I was a weird kid, and it'll be like I was a kid and I'm saying something that I think is totally normal, and everyone's like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. Get out of here. But that was my biggest fear going in. It was untrue. I said some normal stuff and I said some weird stuff, and both of them were applauded.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a lot of applause in improv.
And how did
There's a
that
lot.
fear change over the course of the class?
I think I got a little bit more used to, as I was taking the classes, like the idea that not only like the things that I'm like, oh, I'll let somebody else go. I'll let somebody else say something. No, me jumping in and saying something is a service to them. Like it is, I think it's why the word gift is used in improv, of like an idea you have, something that you are giving to the scene. Something you are introducing, a new piece of information about the scene, about yourself, about them, is a gift. And I think that was the biggest thing, is over the course of the classes, I started to see ideas that I would have not as something I was imposing upon someone, but as a gift that I was giving them.
That is beautiful, Audra, because I think a lot of women are afraid of taking up too much space. And in a way, when we speak, we're taking up space. And so the improv technique that you're talking about, gifting, is a service because you're giving them a quirk that a character has or a location or something, and then that enables them to build off of it, and that's how you build a scene.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you to be able to feel like that, understand that it's a service and you don't have to be afraid or you're not taking up space or whatever is
Yeah.
another beautiful gift that improv gave you.
Yeah. And something else that I've seen is that there's just so many different ways that you can fit and be helpful and make a show better. Because I heard someone say at one point in time, because occasionally there will be games where it's like mostly pun-based games, where you'll step out, say your joke, and then go back. And if I don't have a very good one, I heard someone say, "Oh, even if my joke isn't very good, I'll go up and say it because it'll give someone else a couple seconds to think of one that's better." I'm like, "Oh, that's that's such a kindness." And every single time someone does that for me, I'm so grateful. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And half the time, I'm giving someone more time. And half the time, it's a joke that I didn't know was funny. And so it's the type of thing where if you get out of your own way, you're funnier and you're kinder to the group and you're kinder to yourself. It's just cool.
And we all can use a lot more kindness in this world.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
So each class is 8 weeks, and each class ends in a performance. And with the 101, there's two 101 classes, usually on a weeknight and a Saturday. And so the performance is the two classes come together for a final performance. How did you feel after your first time performing in front of others?
My first time performing in front of others will have actually been my intermediate class because I was out of town for the Improv 101 performance. And it's another thing of why I may have taken Gentle if it was available. I was so unnecessarily terrified of improv that if I knew that I had to do a performance at the end of my first class, I may not have signed up. And if you talk to any of the teachers, they will say you never have to perform, and I absolutely believe them. But if I'm doing a class, I want to do the thing. I want to sign up for it in its entirety. Um, and so my first performance will have been the intermediate um, showcase, and it was very fun. It was the type of thing of I had been rehearsing improv in a small setting. It's just the people who are in class with you um, around, and they'll giggle when you're in other scenes, but they're listening actively, and so they're they're thinking of, okay, here's how I'm gonna jump in and help the scene. So to do the things that we had practiced in front of people and hear actual laughs for things that we had been practicing was wild to experience and be like, oh, I thought this was funny, like in the back of my head. But to hear that coming off of an audience as well was super cool and very empowering in the space of like, okay, yes, I can do this. And a lot of those things I think in improv feed off of each other, where it's like you start to make more choices, um, and then you start to get validation for those choices, and then you start to make more and more and more, um, which has been super great to experience. And since I'm in classes and still peers with some of the people that I was in the first class with, is very cool to also see in other people. Because I tend to be so hard on myself, and I'll be like, oh, everyone's better at this than me. But to see that parallel growth of we're all growing and we're all learning together. And this is a really new improv community. So I hear. I have no I have 10 months experience in an improv community, which apparently I've met people who have been doing this for over a decade. So I am a baby in the improv world. And so to be able to get to see so many people growing alongside each other is amazing community wise. You can always build each other up or see like new things that people were like, oh, I was so uncomfortable with this, but now I can do anything.
So you like
I
the live performances now?
I do. They're still terrifying to me. But what in this life isn't? If I limited myself to things that weren't scary to me, I wouldn't leave the house. So it's the type of thing that is scary but good. And I think a lot of people limit themselves and think that they're not supposed to be scared of things, but no, that's fine. Um, my piece of advice that my mom gave me when I was younger that couldn't I couldn't do it when I was younger and now is incredibly useful. Do it scared. Like I'd be too scared and be like, "Oh, I can't do this. I'm too scared." Well, no one said you didn't have to. No one said you had to not be scared. You can do this and be scared at the same time. Uh, and that's been very useful to just be like, "Well, you're allowed to be scared of this. And you're also allowed to really enjoy it." Those two things can be true.
Ah, I just exhaled. What a freeing mantra to have.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned your first performance was in intermediate. Who was your teacher and how did they shape your experience?
Um, I was taught in intermediate. Ethan was the teacher for intermediate at that time. I have not looked at who's teaching what now, um, but I really like Ethan as a teacher because I'm so much of the like logistics and theory based things. And I feel like Ethan has an exercise for every skill, uh, where it's like, oh, yeah, like we kind of want to work on this specific thing. There is an exercise that strengthens that specific improv muscle. And so I think that type of mentality really works well for me when I'm being like, but what's the logic behind how this works? What's the structure? What
I
are
love
we?
that.
So being able to kind of dissect those things is super interesting to me.
You have a very analytical brain. It's probably why you're in STEM.
Yeah.
So you mentioned some changes, but any other changes in your confidence, creativity, or social life since improv?
I I think most generally just a bit more socially outgoing. Because I had my like set group of friends, but I typically wouldn't talk or mingle with anybody else in any other situations. Um, but now, since being at the theater and really naturally and organically, I've just formed more of a community where I'll go into shows, and even if they're people I don't know very well, it's just full of friendly faces. And I'm sure that a lot of places that I've gone into before have been full of friendly faces. But now I am able to perceive them as friendly. It's the type of thing of like, oh, I'm so like I did one weird thing. One like I had this conversation with one person and I did one weird thing and I can never go back. Was a very ingrained mindset for me. But now I'm at the improv theater and I'm doing weird stuff all the time. And I have the capability to consistently go back, which,
And you have friends that do weird stuff all the time.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're a bunch of weirdos in a phenomenal way.
In what ways has laughter made you feel more connected to others or yourself?
Um, I think it makes me feel both. There's a way for both. More connected to myself just because I have to me at least, a very identifiable laugh when I get going. Um, and so there was a period of time where I wouldn't laugh very openly not in my house. Like, I would be like, oh, I'll like stifle it because I don't like my laugh. Now I just go for it. I am around too many funny things to not be laughing. And I think that is another way in which, like I mentioned, that I think that there's a lot of skills that people have that kind of enhance things as a whole. Being a generous laugher in a small, like, comedy community is in and of itself a gift, I think. And I was like, oh, me as I naturally am is good. Because there are other distinct laughs in the theater that when you're on stage and you make a joke and you hear that laugh and you're like, yes, I can connect that to like a real person who cares about me in this space. And to be like, oh, I can naturally do that without trying extra hard. I can provide that for other people. Feels great. Feels great.
I love that. So you mentioned you took 101, intermediate, advanced, and stand up twice.
Mm-hmm.
Which class was the most surprising and why?
Ooh, this is a good question. I would probably say either. I have an argument for all of them. So I would do a brief, if you will allow.
Yes.
A brief. 101 was the most surprising because it was the idea of like getting out of your own way. And so being able to do that and letting myself do that a little bit and seeing how many more ideas I actually did have if I didn't say, oh no, that's not funny enough. Oh no, that's not technically correct. Oh no, that's not whatever. So that was surprising in the sense that, one, this is very enjoyable and I'm actually seeing some growth. Intermediate is where more of the technical aspects started to show their head. And so that was surprising of like, okay, I'm really seeing, like, we had some technical aspects in the 101, but I'm starting to see the real bones here. Advanced was where I started to have fun. And there are people who have fun. Most people have fun first class, first class 101. They're having a blast. I'm so hard on myself, and that I was like, oh, this is what play feels like. Because I didn't necessarily do a ton of like imaginative play as a kid. Like I would look out at the clouds and then I had a journal that I would write down the shapes that I saw rather than like inventing things. I would keep a very detailed list of the shapes of the clouds. And so being able to, as someone in their 30s, finally figure out proper play was so cool. And that was kind of at the advanced time where I was like, oh, I'm allowed to really let loose. Stand up surprised me because I thought that I was going to look uncomfortable on stage, and I thought that I wouldn't have enough jokes to write, and I thought all of these things about myself that turned out to be fundamentally untrue. Like, 'cause I could write jokes, and I had plenty, and I had tons that never even got said in class and never got performed, that I think I could go up and just do, and they'd be at least solid. And the feeling confident on stage, I think I look a little bit nervous, but steady in a way that is good and is solid and is not wrong in any way.
For
And so
sure. I don't know if it's the microphone, but when I got to see you and Matt do your Gate Leapers first live show at Peak Improv Theater, and you looked very comfortable.
I think there's a few elements because I watched videos and I, before being at this theater, I would be very tough to give myself praise. I agree. I looked pretty stinking comfortable. And I give credit for that to a few factors. We had done enough episodes of the podcast that I'm like, okay, I have faith in the format. And I know the people that I'm on stage with. They have taught classes. Casey was one of the people on the teams. Julia Bosi. I had done coached ensembles and workshops that she had taught, and they were incredible. And so I had faith in the format. I had faith in the people that I was on stage with. And because I had taken so many classes and done performances on that stage, I had faith in myself. I was like, okay, no, I can do this. And
And you were hilarious.
it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I loved the jokes and the riffs that we got off on that you previously, that type of thing, you can plan the games, but it's the people that are up there that make it funny. And the types of jokes there's jokes you expect there to be in that type of show, and there's jokes that you just don't expect. And got both.
You got both. All right. I know you're tight on time. I have one more question for you. What would you say to someone who's on the fence about signing up?
I would do it. Even if it's just the first Improv 101 class, I think even if you don't intend to be a performer in any way, shape, or form, the idea of being able to have an idea and say it, or actively listen to someone and take on board what they're saying and add to it, um, improves your life I cannot think of an aspect of your life that it would not improve. If that's the type of thing that you're interested in, it absolutely would. If you want to have a silly, fun time, it is also that. And so I can't think of anyone who wouldn't either benefit from or thoroughly enjoy improv.
Is there anything I didn't ask that you want to share?
Not that I can think of. The immediate thing that I thought was go to peakimprov.com for more information. So I
That's
think
the podcaster in you.
yes, the podcaster in me immediately wanted to make sure that we got the plugs in of where
I got the
everyone can
plugs
find.
coming.
Yes. And if you are interested in improv, they have jams. So if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want a class structure, the jams are playing fun games. And so if you're like, oh, I don't want the structure and the pressure of it being a class right off, try a jam, see if you like it.
And they're free.
Yeah. And you probably will like it. But if you need a little bit more reassurance, you can try it out in those situations or go to one of the shows. They have tons of shows.
Do you have a favorite show?
Ooh, I love Toon Titans. I really like the jokes and the capabilities that everybody on that team has. It's an improvised musical. They'll do a little bit of joking around at the beginning around like topics that people suggest and then improvise a full musical, songs and all. And it's so funny, and I'm in such awe of the skill that they have. Uh, it just delights me every single time. I can't think of a better word other than delighted by that show in particular.
I thought you were going to say Laughter and Legends because you were such a cute elf the other night.
I mean, I love Laughter and Legends as well. Improvised D&D. I think that improv in the world of tabletop role playing those are so hand in hand that it's such a fun show as well.
Well,
Love it.
thank you, Audra, for sharing your story, your energy, and your journey with us. It's people like you who make Peak Improv Theater more than a stage. It's a community. And thank you, viewers, for joining us for this PiT profile. If Audra's story made you smile, inspired you, or reminded you why you love improv, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with a friend who needs a little more laughter in their life. If you have a question for one of the owners, teachers, or performers, email us at info@peakimprov.com. In the meantime, we've got more stories coming your way from the students, performers, teachers, and owners who make Peak Improv Theater such a special place. And as Audra said, go to peakimprov.com for some more information. Until next time, keep saying yes, keep showing up, and we'll see you on or off the stage.